Hello everyone, it's King Bullet, and today we will be discussing the Chad Madara versus the New Era Kage. Now, ever since Madara destroyed the previous Kage during Naruto Shippuden, there's been this conception that the New Era Kage can't do any better, so I will be testing this conception. Is it true? We'll soon find out. To avoid confusion, this matchup will be Madara at his complete strongest, so with the 6 paths powers and his third eye, and he'll be faced off against the New Era Kage, the ones from Boruto. However, Hokage Naruto will not be participating in this matchup. You should already know why. If not, like where have you all been hiding, behind a rock or something? Maybe this isn't your first exhibition of my work or my videos. If you enjoyed these videos, you should consider subscribing, even becoming a member. The link to becoming a member will be in my description. Now let's lay out the situation here. Madara has once again been rebirthed by Sasuke for some unknown reason. Don't ask me why. Rebirth just means Madara has been brought back to life, but he can still die. However, this time round he has the power of a Ten Tails, since it's been ingrained into him like it had been for Gaara and Hagoromo. So he has all of his 6 paths powers as per usual. So the New Era Kage arrived to the battlefield. Now to win, they either need to restrain him, seal him away, or kill him. However, Madara is prepared to kill them, and at worst case scenario, use his abilities on them. I will power scale both Madara and the Kage, and then finally give my verdict in the conclusion at the end of the video. So we'll begin with Madara. In their last encounter with Madara, the Kage were powerless in the face of Madara's base form. In fact, at the time of reanimation, he raged against the world, matching their same overwhelming force. As a Ten-tailed Jinchuriki, Madara scales above Jubito according to Minato, at least in Sage power. Madara also manages to casually blitz Sage mode Minato, which is a very impressive feat, since base Minato alone is capable of blitzing before Fry Kage, for example, and Sage mode is something of a 10 times amplification, so you can imagine Madara is pretty fast. He goes on to fight my guy in the 8th gate, and it seems to be a quite pitched fight. Madara might not be taking him completely seriously, so begins to get overwhelmed by him. However, they are relative in speed and power for the most part, with the exception of maybe Night Guy, who kicks Madara's ribs so hard that they crack and he blows off half his body, from which Madara can actually heal, showing that he does have regenerative abilities. Might Guy also proving you don't need Sage mode abilities or Senjutsu in general to physically harm the Ten-tailed Jinchuriki, so you can literally just beat them down to win if you're strong enough physically. So Madara does technically survive Guy in his 8th gate and is prepared to kill him when Naruto intercepts, so throws a truth seeking orb, Naruto intercepting it, kicking it away in his 6 paths base Sage mode, which Madara is massively impressed by and even afraid of, as seen when he runs away from his lava star Rasen shuriken that cuts the Shinju in half completely, whereas Night Guy could barely dent the tree. This forces Madara to absorb the Shinju or the god tree into himself to give him a massive power up. This power up allows him to keep up with 6 paths KCM Naruto, proving that absorbing that tree gave him like a KCM level amp. He goes on to fight Team 7 collectively, but once Madara gets his 2nd eye, he seems to have the clear advantage over them, having a power that almost rivals Hagoromo. Madara delays Team 7 by creating multiple Jibaku Tensei and chucks them at them. This provides a perfect distraction as Madara gains proximity to the moon, awakening his Rinne Sharingan in the process, and then succeeds in casting the Infinite Tsukuyomi. Only Sasuke is capable of looking at it without being caught in a Genjutsu, whereas Susanoo has to cover the light from the eyes of Naruto and Sakura. This is where Madara uses Wood Style across the entire planet in a very short amount of time, almost in an instant. His feet usually calculate like large planet level. Right after this, Madara does literally get stabbed in the back by Zetsu. Now, I don't think this is necessarily like an anti-feat, since Black Zetsu is probably very powerful at this stage, since he's literally using the body of Obito, and Obito shortly after this can somewhat react to Kaguya and is very useful throughout the fight, so he's not weak by any means. However, a lot of his chakra that was accumulated by the Shinju starts to crack and burst through the ground, surging right into Madara. Madara is incapable of controlling all of his chakra and begins to bloat up, almost like a balloon, and the reason he can't contain all this chakra is because he's becoming the vessel for Kaguya, the ancestor of chakra on Earth, showing that in chakra he scales nowhere nearer. And this is confirmed by Sasuke, who states that Kage's new chakra is far beyond anything they've seen before, far stronger than Madara's. Sasuke struggles to fathom that there's a person with this much chakra. Hagoromo states that his mother was stronger than any other, implying that she's beyond Hagoromo. At the beginning of Team 7's fight with Kaguya, they cannot keep up in speed at all and are getting completely blitzed by her, and they eventually slowly catch up to her in speed. So this sums up Madara's power scaling portion. What about his abilities? The first thing that should be noted is that Madara has access to the Rinnegan, therefore can inherently use the 6 paths of pain, including the Diva Path, Asura Path, Human Path, Animal Path, Preta Path, and Nakura Path, as stated in the data book, and as implied by Obito's statement about being able to use the paths. Madara can use the Tengai Shinsei, which allows him to drag down meteorites from most likely the asteroid belt, and should also be able to use Chibaku Tensei, using the ground below him to make massive orbs of earth that seal away his opponents. He should also have access to Wood Style and Sage Energy, alongside regeneration. He's also capable of using Storm Release Light Fang, which despite only being light speed, can actually bisect anything apparently. Madara's most broken ability is probably a Limbo Border Jail, which allows him to create these invisible clones that exist in the world of Limbo, an invisible universe that coexists with the normal universe, overlapping it, but ordinarily is impossible to detect or perceive by a normal person. In fact, even interacting with it is almost impossible, meaning the Limbo clones are intangible, invisible, yet it can still touch you and harm you. Each of the clones that Madara creates are equal to himself in power and speed, and it's presumed they can all use the same abilities as Madara, making this a very lethal ability. We can now move on to the power scaling of a new era Kage. Kage literally means shadow, a title reserved for the leader of one of the 5 great nations. The Kage collectively are known as the 5 Kage or the Gokage, literally meaning 5 shadows. A Kage oversees all the activities of their village, from sending ninja on missions to making hard decisions about the safety and politics of their country. A village's Kage is generally acknowledged as the most powerful ninja in that land. The Kage are renowned as the top shinobi of the world. Now, scaling the new era Kage is a little bit difficult, since I believe the new era Kage went through something called power cliffing, which is a term that some of you might be familiar with. It basically means the same thing as a power creep. Power clipping is like when villains of a series, especially in shonen manga, progressively become stronger than the ones before, which forces characters who are maybe not even protagonists to drastically jump in power just to stay relevant. This happens in series like Dragon Ball Z, and I know a lot of people might not like it. However, this was a major concern for even Kishimoto when going into Boruto as well. When asked what are your concerns for starting a new manga series after concluding one that was a huge hit, Kishimoto directly said for Boruto that Naruto and Sasuke have become so much stronger and are fighting on even bigger and bigger scales against stronger and stronger villains, but now you have like kids and other people kind of getting involved in these fights, so the scale is gonna feel smaller and he doesn't want it to feel like lacking. So Kishimoto thinks he might have to focus on expressing things differently for this to be the case. Although I said scaling the new era Kage is a little bit difficult, we can very simply scale a Kage above people in Konoha, since when they are trying to retrieve Naruto from Momoshiki and Kinshiki, it was stated directly by the combat strategist Shikamaru of the current members here that the Kage are the best as far as combat ability goes, meaning that the Kage would have to be stronger than people like Sakura, Shikamaru and Rock Lee. We know that Sakura was capable of harming characters like Kaguya, who we've already established has durability beyond Madara's. This was Kaguya on guard, since she literally heard Sakura behind her and knew that there was a presence above her, implied by the exclamation mark. But even if you argue she was somehow off guard, even though she factually isn't, Kage can still tank punches from Naruto when she is off guard. So Sakura regardless is about that strong. And in Sakura Hiden, Sakura is stated to have unrivaled physical strength, placing her above the likes of Naruto and Sasuke. So Sakura is very consistently comparable to the likes of Kaguya. Not to say that she can beat her, but physically she is like comparable to her, punch to punch per se, and above the likes of Madara at this point, since she has actually got stronger. The new era Kage also scale above Rock Lee, who at this stage can use all 8 gates if you're using the anime, and in the 4th data book it states that hypothetical 8th gate Rock Lee will be as strong as 6th path's Naruto, who is capable of harming Kaguya, so everything seems consistent so far, right? But it's also stated that Lee was also potentially useful versus Momoshiki. Momoshiki also being a threat beyond Kaguya, and the Kage also being beyond Shikamaru. Shikamaru who was able to hold off Kinshiki and Momoshiki for a while, and only failed since Momoshiki unfairly absorbed his jutsu. Some people may bring up that Shikamaru in his novel is capable of taking control of the 4 Kage simultaneously. However, this happens post the Momoshiki event, implying that he's got drastically stronger. So I think we can safely place a Kage above the likes of these characters, who are comparable to Shippuden god tiers, who are already above Madara physically in power and speed. To undeniably prove his scaling, we know that the Kage are probably stronger than Kinshiki, if not at the very least relative to him, literally by swapping hands with him, keeping up with him in speed, and even sealing him. We know Kinshiki was one of the threats beyond Kaguya, one that she feared so much she thought she needed an army, which is also stated by the narrator. Kinshiki as a fighter is apparently equal in swordsmanship to Sasuke, which is most likely a skill thing. He literally only swings an axe and uses physical power, so it was that aspect that Kaguya feared about him in particular, but also feared Momoshiki. And this is all based off a scroll that Sasuke read. Based off this, he thinks that they are threats beyond Kaguya, and later confirms that all of his suspicions were right. Characters like Darowi, who is one of the stronger Kage I suppose, keeps up in speed with base Momoshiki, even physically matching his sword strikes. I think Gaara even blocks a sword strike in the novels. Momoshiki states that the Kage are all first class in taijutsu and all stats in general, meaning they're some of the strongest people he knows of. Momoshiki even bleeds, and for the first time in his life, resides death, knowing that there's nothing he can do at all in his situation. He's literally powerless, and he's no pushover like physically as well. His taijutsu is so good, he can actually kick away base Naruto and avoid his attacks. Base Naruto actually being like comparable to the Kage. Momoshiki even believing that he would die here indicates that the Kage's attack potency is stronger than Momoshiki's own durability. Just for reference, Momoshiki is capable of creating like parallel dimensions / universes like Kaguya, which requires an amount of energy to do, placing them just as strong as characters like Momoshiki, who have feats in scaling beyond Kaguya surprisingly. I know that the Kage do get destroyed later on when Momoshiki fuses, but to be absolutely fair, this is Momoshiki once he's fused. He's got a massive power up at this point. So moving into the conclusion, the Kage do have the physical speed advantage and power advantage over Madara. However, Madara is very versatile with his abilities. Do the new era Kage have any abilities that they can use against Madara? There are a few, most of them come from Gaara. I think Gaara is going to be the main person dictating who would win the fight. Gaara is probably the fastest and strongest member of the Kage. This is shown as he performs the best against fused Momoshiki. I know he loses eventually, but he was keeping up with fused Momoshiki for at least a little while before getting overwhelmed. Gaara also has a good variety of hacks. Like sealing, he has a Grand Sand Mausoleum and a desert-laid Imperial Funeral Seal. Using this sealing jutsu, he's actually capable of restricting people like Urashiki, who is a very strong Otsutsuki member, for a very long time if I recall. So there's no doubt in my mind that Madara would permanently be sealed by this, just based off how strong Gaara is by the power scaling I provided earlier. If Gaara harms you and his sand gets into your bloodstream, he can actually restrain you through that as well. I would definitely say Madara is more versatile in his jutsu and his hacks than the Kage, as well as probably smarter in battle IQ. Like his ability Limbo is very broken. However, he's a lot more arrogant and he probably wouldn't use a lot of his abilities thinking that he's stronger, and that would actually be his downfall. Especially considering that the Kage are probably more physically stronger and faster than Madara. It's more likely that the new era Kage will pull something off before Madara even starts to pull out his best moves. This fight could even be a blitz. They could react to Madara before he even moves, just based off their scaling of Madara being vastly weaker than somebody like Kaguya. And that concludes my verdict. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. This was like an inverse Naruto video. If you do like content like this, it would be much appreciated if you could subscribe, even like the video. Thank you for making it to the end of the video. Hope you guys have a brilliant day. If you think you can beat me on this topic, my Discord is linked down in the description. And I'll see you guys later. Peace out.